Okay, so I'm going to just put another outer ring here on the eye. I'll show you a close-up of what the eye actually looks like in a minute now. As you can see, it's a lovely kind of a rusty amber colour, and there's a nice reflection on the top. It's darker towards the outer edge, and there's a dark pupil or dot in the centre, and it gets darker as you get up towards the eyebrow where it's in a bit of shadow. So I just placed the scissors there so I can observe easier in an easier fashion kind of the shape. So I'm going to make some little quick points down, markers. There's one here where this goes in and out to that dip, just there. So it'll give me a guide when I'm drawing. And it goes in a bit here and comes back out here nearly straight then after that. So I just placed the scissors there so I can observe easier in an easier fashion kind of the shape. So I'm going to make some little quick points down, markers. There's one here where this goes in and out to that dip, just there. So it'll give me a guide when I'm drawing. And it goes in a bit here and comes back out here nearly straight then after that. So it sweeps in a bit of a curve here, goes out here, goes in a bit here, and then kind of straightens off. Now we can refine that later when we're adding the texture of the feathers. But so far so good, he's looking pretty okay. Now, okay, so I think that's most of the main markers and lines put in. So I'm just going to mark here in light. It's so light you can hardly see it. It kind of lines up with this line, that marker there, where the kind of area of shade begins. I don't want to make it too dark, but still dark enough for you to see. So I think now we're ready to move on to make some shapes and outlines of the texture and the feathers. If you want to, you can use the tip of a scissors to create this kind of overlapping feather shape. But remember to concentrate and make sure that you're following, see the root of the pen, that you're following the contour line of the head when you're doing so. But it's quite a simple way of making some nice feather shapes. And as you can see, it starts to go this way around the eye. Just follow around the head and down the neck when you're putting in your marks and shapes. I'm also going to show you now next how to finish the eye. You can continue on yourselves, as you very well know how to do, adding the feather textures using the scissors or freehand if you feel more comfortable, but remembering to follow along with the contour of the bird's head. Okay, so the eye here, it's a little bit more, I suppose, lemon shaped, the outside shape of the eye, than I have made here. So I'm just going to do a few little corrections, and I can hide my mistakes because this area is going to be quite dark, so you're not going to see the initial pen lines that were made kind of, I suppose, in error. So it's kind of darker here at the top. It's going to be always darker, much darker here because this is in shadow, and it'll get lighter towards the bottom here where more light can get in. And as you can see here, there's kind of reflections of tree branches and stuff here in the bird's eye. So we're going to simplify it a little bit and just put maybe just a little outline a highlight here, so I know not to go too far in there with my shading. And this circular part here is quite dark. Yes? Okay, so this is the dark pupil or the black dot that we have in our eye as well. So there's a dark area around the rim of this, but it's not quite as dark as this area here. I'm just going to bring the picture a bit closer, or my phone rather, with the picture in it. So you can see very black there dot in the centre and a dark ring around the outside, but a slightly lighter area between the outer ring and that black centre dot. So let me shade this in. I'm glad now I used a biro, so it gives you no excuse for not joining in and drawing and saying, oh, I don't have a rubber, I don't have a pen. By the way, if you don't have a rubber and you are using pencil, very good substitute for a rubber is a little bit of stale bread. And you can just use that to rub out. And the crust or a bit of soda bread can rub out very light pen marks as well. So this is the dark area of the eye shaded. Okay, so this is a bit tricky using a pen, but I'm going to try and put the kind of little dark halo here, and I'll see if the pen is wet enough. So what I'm doing is kind of up, down, up, down, up, down, leaning hard at the beginning and then lighter towards the centre to get a bit of shade. So as you know, how do you create shade? Lines close together or leaning harder with the drawing implement, whether it's a pen or a pencil. Now I'm going to smudge with my fingers to see can I drag out a little bit. Now I'm going to start leaning lighter and spacing out the lines here so that it gradually gets lighter, because it's a curved surface, so it's not going to just suddenly get lighter. That would only happen with a cornered edge. Okay, so that's our eye area. So next we're going to add a little bit of shade around the eye, because this is in kind of a deep socket, as you can see here. But you must be remembering when you're applying this shade that it is a feather texture like here. Okay, so try and make similar marks. So as you can see, I'm making, I suppose, little stretched out bracket shapes. Now the feathers are much smaller around the eye, because if they were big, the poor buzzard would get blinded for all the fluff and stuff in his eyes. So it's kind of similar shape, but a little bit smaller. So I'm going to, this area here, as you can see in the picture there, is quite dark. All this area here, between this and this, is dark. So we're going to put lots of overlapping bracket shapes, so we're getting that feather texture, but we're also getting the shade. Okay. Now I'm just going to have another closer look at the eye area. So it gets very dark here towards the front. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more shade there. And as I said, it's a little bit more lemon shaped, so I'm going to put a little guideline here so that I know how to apply my shade. So it starts becoming a little bit more kind of lemon shaped. And I'm correcting a little bit as I go along and refining, the posh word, refining the shapes. But still all the time remembering the texture. Now, here's he gone in me. Now, okay. So that's that dark area kind of shade, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker here. Just going over so that you can still see the marks underneath, but just adding a little bit more shade so I can see that this area here is different. Now again, we're going to put in some, but spacing them out further apart, because this is a lighter area here. And there's this ring here as well. I kind of want to leave that area white and just start making my feather shapes outside of that ring area and leave that kind of quite white. I notice as well here, this kind of area where his mouth extends back, so he can open his mouth really wide, is quite dark as well. So I'm going to start adding a little bit of shade here. But I'm going to remember to start applying it with texture as well. I'll spread out a little further apart here where it gets kind of lighter, and then it'll start getting a bit darker here at the edge. Okay, this area is hard beak. This isn't, this area above is hard beak. It's not that feathery, it's solid. So it has a different texture. So when we're shading it, or when we're drawing, we have to draw it in a different way to show that. Okay, so I'm just going to put kind of an edge line here to show where those differences occur. It's not quite as strong as that because there is a slight overlap, softer area with the feather. If I was able to rub out, I'd rub out this, that we get a slightly softer edge against the feather. But this is quite fine and here rather than really big feathers. And these feathers continue then all the ways. As I said, you can use the top of the scissors to create that feather shape, or you can draw it freehand. Okay, so, and as you can see, there are shaded areas in and around in between. There's different coloration on the feathers. So the outer edge, if you were to pluck a feather off, the outer edge of the feather is dark and the inner edge, the inner part near the spine, the centre part of the feather is light, and that's what's creating the colouring. So when you do start to make kind of, as you go down further down the body, you'll start making, you know, slightly bigger feather shapes. So just remember that when you are shading them, it's a bit like the spines of a fish. You've got lines going out this way and line going out this way, but you lean harder on the outer edge because that's the part of the feather that's darker, and that's how you create that difference in tone. I'm just going to shade in as well this number 6 shape or apostrophe shape. I'm going to smudge a little bit if I can while the pen is still wet, just to, because it's not a dead sharp edge, it kind of gradually, because it's a curved beak, it gradually gets lighter. This part of the beak is quite dark, so this part out here there's a little bit of light on it, so I'm not going to go right out to the edge because there's a little bit of a highlight on it. Now this bit is a bit tricky. There's a highlight here as well, where a little bit sticks out, a little ridge sticks out. And there's a highlight in the front, kind of there, that I want to leave. Now if you're using pen, you'll be able to smudge. This is kind of mid-tone, it shouldn't be as white as that. I'm kind of restricted. Oh, that's coming. It's starting to move a bit for me. I could wet a cotton bud and that would help. Even though the ink is oil-based, it might still help move it a bit for me. So I'm going to leave you to finish and make your feathers all the ways down and add your tone, remembering to lean a bit harder on the outer part when you're doing the feathers. They're just, I'll do a zoomed in version of a feather here on the other side of the page. So you've got your U shape of your feather, and it's a bit like the bones of a fish, except you lean harder on this outer part here, or you can add another line so that you can see that this centre part here, the centre spine of the feather is lighter, and that's what's creating the different tones there. So if you repeat, following the contours, that lovely feather texture, it'll start to naturally bring up those markings on the bird. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Give me some feedback on whether this was helpful or not, or whether I'm a really terrible video instructor. And I'm look forward to seeing your drawings.